Hello, OAEA art teachers. I am Peter Berwald. I'm a high school art teacher at Springboro High School. And like a lot of you, I'm pretty squeamish about having my face on camera and videoed, but I don't really have a problem with my work being shown. So I'm going to explain to you a lesson that I did years ago and talk about its history a little bit, and then talk to you about some of the ways that you can incorporate this into a classroom. I went to Syracuse University in 1999 to get a master's degree in illustration. Before we even got to school, we had to gather supplies in order to do a 3D illustration of a painted lady mask. A what? That's when I first found out what a painted lady was, a painted Victorian house in San Francisco, among other places. I decided that San Francisco was known for a lot of things, but among its rich history was the harsh earthquakes, which were no friend of painted ladies, I'm sure. Here's an example of a row house I did a few years ago. I had taught doll making to my students, and it's basically just a wire armature, a little bit of Sculpey. I've even taught it at conferences before a couple times. It's a pain because you have to lug all this stuff around. When I did this market, I just cut out some little advertisements from packaging, built a couple people, and tried to make it look like a fun little environment. Last quarter, while we were stuck teaching art at home, a colleague of mine said that she needed a project. She teaches sixth grade art at Springboro. And I know I had taught this lesson before, so I suggested to her that she do the row house. And I sent her a sorry little picture of a cardboard house. I kind of did an example for her, not thinking I was going to do anything with it. Then I started building it and started doing a couple others. And as you can see, I built 4 row houses and then ultimately made them dedicated to the little city of Oakwood where my family and I live. And I asked some of my friends in our sort of neighborhood to start saving boxes, and they were very good about it. And within 3 weeks, I had more boxes than I knew what to do with. And I'm glad, and I saved them because I was assuming I was going to be teaching at the OAEA conference and I'd have all kinds of boxes for people. And I didn't want to bring them to school because about half of them were beer boxes, which can tell you a little bit about my friends and the stress of the fighting the COVID pandemic. As you can see, I've saved a couple cardboard boxes. They're pretty easy to come by. It's nice, the cardboard's very thin and easy to separate and easy to cut and easy to draw on. Here's a box of cereal that I finished, and as you can see, it's just a regular box, but then when you disconnect it, you end up with a really nice surface. It's perfectly light, so you can see whatever it is you draw. And I drew first with a pencil, and then I went through afterward and drew with a marker to kind of help me set up for my next phase, which is cutting out the windows and doors. So here I have a piece of black paper, and it wasn't quite big enough, so I just added a second one. Doesn't really matter because it goes on the inside of the building, which is not this. This is actually the back of the building. We'll be looking through the building, seeing this, and I'd rather my Special K doesn't show up. And so I've got a hot glue gun, and I'm just gonna add a couple dollops of glue, just enough to hold it in really, and place this on the inside. I went to Meijer and got some black paper. It just made it a little easier. And I like the way that the windows have sort of an interior that you don't have to really worry about. And then I can just press this down so that when I cut out these windows, you'll see the black interior. Some people, you can see on the building up here, I added curtains and some people, and I made double windows. I don't expect my students to do anything that's that complicated, but I also don't teach an advanced sculpture or anything like that. Surprisingly, this project's extremely time consuming. The one that I'm showing here is not as time consuming as that one. So most students have scissors and most students have these boxes. It's also important to have a little Scotch tape, maybe a hot glue gun, maybe some black and white paper, and a good pair of scissors goes a long way. I actually have this cutting board and a knife. I don't think I'd recommend that kids use this, but it's certainly helpful to have some kind of blade to start the windows so that I can just cut these. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with the door. I might make it recessed. I also haven't decided if I'm going to make a little shop window or anything like that. One of the things that's so nice about this project is that it reuses materials. We all like to recycle and reuse things. I know I've kept a lot of things in our house that I reuse. I probably have boxes and boxes of things. I'm going to show you, I already cut most of the windows, but I'm just going to cut one more. And just it helps to have a nice pair of scissors. And I don't think I do a super duper job of cutting, but it's close enough. And I try to keep it within the lines. My guess is I'm going to probably end up painting this one as an example, just because it's going to be kind of a showpiece. And that's pretty rough. So I know I have this blade. I can always come back. Not that the students would have something like this, although a high school kid can use an X-Acto. I wouldn't give that to younger kids. The assignment my colleague had was for sixth graders. That's a little too young, I think, to use this blade. I mean, some kids could do it, but that's pretty risky. I decided to make my door recessed, so I just cut it evenly, and these will go in like this. So as you spin around, you can see it's already kind of pre-shaped a bit. And this flap will just go around the edge, either the inside or the outside. And I tape it and hot glue it and connect it, so it's nice and neat. As you can see, I've hot glued it, and I need to kind of clean up a couple edges. But you can also start to fold down your edges and complete the structure. And once you have these sort of built in, it also keeps it stronger, helps it sort of hold together. And then you have to decide what you want to do with the top. As you can see over here, some have decorated tops, some don't. I just tried to put a little bit of trim on each one just because I thought it would look a little more tidy. Little glue here and here. A little glue here. Should hold the building a little bit, and it should also keep it structurally a little more sound. Because this piece of cardboard has such big windows and doors, I had to put a little bit of a support beam or support box on the inside. This will kind of help keep it together, and the more you build it, it will also get a little stronger. I also added a decorative piece here, one more here, and I'm going to add one more that goes across here and glue this down in a second. The other thing I'm going to put in is a little doorway, and I put black in it because I wanted to make sure that it didn't really show, and it's going to fit in here to make that area a little bit more tidy. Well, I kind of messed up. I think the windows were so big that they were just too deep, and I decided that I wanted them to be more shallow. So I had some black paper in there. I've actually just covered it up. I took some old toilet paper rolls and cut them and made a little support system here. You can see it kind of elevates the back wall. And then I cut out this piece of black paper, cutting around my little frame, and I'm going to insert this down. I also had to remove my support beam in the middle because it was just in the way. And I might put another one in, but I'm just going to slide this down, make my windows a little less cavernous. And now I have much more shallow windows, which already looks a whole lot better. I'd like to put an awning in, and there's so many different ways to do an awning. You can do it in one piece, you can have it curved, you can have it square. I just cut a little piece of cardboard because I don't have a whole lot of room on this building for an awning. It's just going to be over this one window, and it kind of fits in like this, and then it's going to elevate up. So it's pretty, doesn't come out of the building, from the building too far. And I'm just going to glue in the sides here, a little bit of glue here, a little bit of tape underneath it, and it should hold just about right. It would be a pretty small little shop window, but you'll see just enough of it that it will be, you know, it'll look convincingly like some kind of tented or hard rooftop. I'm back. I had enough yesterday trying to build this apartment building, my row house, and I realized there were a couple things that made it more difficult. One of them was that the windows are so big that it actually took away from the clarity of the building. And so I thought I would fill in some of the windows, and I'm going to show you how to do this. I did most of them already. I also made this window here of my shop a little bigger, because once I had the awning put on, it made it just too small. And so I thought I would just add a little bit. And then I had some white board. I got a folder from like a doctor's office, and it had white folder on the inside, so it's perfect. So I cut out some pieces. As you can see, I put most of them inside here, but I've got this piece of paper. So I'm taking the back of it, and I'm just going to draw a little outline. The top windows I discovered just a slight bit bigger than the bottom windows. So I can draw on the back without any problems. I also discovered that it is easier to have a cutting board and a blade, which again makes it much more difficult for kids that are younger and smaller. And, you know, it's a hazard, and you want to really limit how many hazards that you put in little kids' hands. And so I just did a little template, and then I've been using this blade, which is basically a carpet cutter, and I just trimmed down this line carefully. I did switch the blade out because there's nothing worse than a dull blade when you're trying to cut a straight line. I need to take my glasses off so I can see better how carefully I can cut. And as you can tell by this whole building, absolute precision and careful lines, they're important, but it's not everything. I'm just trying to make it fun also. And maybe by making it not so perfect, there'll be a little bit less pressure on the kids to have theirs look perfect. So they're in luck with me. All right, I'll just close this up, put it up here with my other tools, and then I have this window. I have had to trim off the sides a little bit, but as you can see, I put it in sideways, and then kind of size it up and try to make it fit. And because there's some other cardboard in here, sometimes it kind of holds it up a little bit. And that's not bad. It needs to go up a little bit. So I need to trim the top and the bottom off before I put this in. And then I just run a little bit of hot glue around the edges to kind of keep it up. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back with you soon. You can see Cupid, our cat. He's not been the most helpful assistant. He likes to get into things. And then Mona, our dog down here, she's a pretty good helper, although sometimes she's so quiet, I forget she's back there, and I can wheel my chair into her and stuff. But Cupid found a seashell, and he's going to make sure he plays with it for a while. So I ran a little bit of glue in here, and I just need to do a little bit on the other side as well. And so I just drop the glue in here just a little bit, and then hold it up. And I probably only need 2. I can also put some tape in there, and you can see it just needs a little bit of glue here and there to kind of complete this part of the window structure. And if you get little bits of hot glue, you can usually peel them away. Little strands all over. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tiles on here and just try to make it look finished. And I think I'm probably not going to paint it. I don't know yet. I might have mentioned I was going to paint it yesterday, but I'm undecided. I kind of like the cardboard look. To really rough them up, you can also peel off cardboard if it's corrugated and make it look like a kind of a rougher structure that's dilapidated somewhat. So I will check back with you soon. It's important while you're working to just take a little break and scratch your doggy a little bit. I think she appreciates it. Sometimes she nudges my hand with her nose to remind me that she's there, and she needs some loving. So I've put some tiles on the front of this building. I think it's coming together pretty well. As you can see, they're pretty evenly cut, but some don't fit as well as others, and I decided not to really worry about it. That's sort of been one of the aspects of this building that makes it kind of fun. And you also can use this as a way to explain some of the different architectural terms like pediment and facade and tile and clapboard, awning and window frames and whatnot. And so, it can serve as a good way to talk about architecture, maybe lead into or come out of perspective a bit with it. So I have now tiled it, making it look a little bit more complete. I have to decide if I want to add a sidewalk, a doorknob, or some kind of handle, any kind of advertising. And I think it's mostly done, at least for this point, unless, again, I decide to paint it. So I've decided to make a little doorway, little entryway, and it's pretty convenient. I can just slide this in, a little slot, goes something like this, and then I can put white on it if I want, and I can just glue it in there underneath here. And then I made a little awning. I put a strip here too because it was just a little messy. And I made a little awning just by folding up two sides. And I'm just gonna glue this down, and then that'll give it a little bit more of a finish also. The white has a nice finished edge. Those doctor's offices always use good folders, so that's gonna go on there. And then I'm gonna decide what kind of design to do. My videographer and chief editor is my wife, Kirsten, who's a French professor. And so I think I need to do something that is like a French cafe or something like that. So stay tuned and you'll see what comes next. Here's my final example finished. It could use some curtains and maybe a few flowers, but it's mostly done. Here are a couple examples that I found online in Pinterest. Some pretty elaborate work. Here's a really elaborate cardboard house done by my neighbor, Mrs. Cleverly. She teaches at Wayne High School. And then here's another one done by Mrs. Dameron Schmidt, who teaches 6th grade at Springboro Intermediate. And she put a lot of cool details like rocks and pebbles and a stop sign, and it looks a lot like her own house. Good luck. I think the sky's the limit. However you want to do these will be great. It's up to you, but I hope you enjoyed my lesson, and I hope your row house goes well.